We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and 3 times a week on the Internet nationwide through knupmedia.com. Our guest by phone, Western Regional Director of the National Right to Life, Brian Johnston. Brian, that was eloquent. I love that. That was a great explanation of really what the civic duty should be of citizens. You know, I love the way de Tocqueville put it. He said, you know, when you look at American society, the role of the church in society, the role of people of faith is to hold the state to moral accountability. And we haven't done that in the last couple hundred years. And I shouldn't say last couple hundred years. We haven't done it in the last 50 or 60 years. And that's why the society's gone the direction it has, is because we've created this void. And there are people that are more than happy to fill that void, and you can see what the results are.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I know many historians, folks that have studied the American Revolution, refer to the Black Robe Brigade. Black Robe Brigade well foreshadowed the American Revolution, and they were, the black robes in those days were the folks in the pulpits, the preachers.
Yes.
And it was very clear that the view of Christianity they held is it applies to real life. That's what they were saying. It was not pie in the sky when you die, with all due respect. They actually spoke against a pietism, which is very common, and any Christians listening know that pietism is a very common temptation. It's one of the greatest temptations that Christ warned about. Beware the leaven of the Pharisees. And that is that I'll do these religious things, and that takes care of my business, just to quote a famous radio show.
Right.
But the way we really take care of business is by digging down. And dig down to the issues that matter. And before the American Revolution, that was the brand of Christian teaching that went on. And they really inspired the American citizenry, basically all English subjects, to understand the role of government and to really get a grasp on the basic principles that have been handed, all British, by the way. And we're seeing this. We don't have time to talk about that, but anyone of British extraction, literally every one of the founders were British gentlemen who were exposed to those principles, and they're really found, that you might say, in the Magna Carta, which was unique in European history, and that was the foreshadowing of our Constitution. But based on Christian principles, that God has given these rights. That is a Christian principle, and that's the founding principle in our founding documents then. That God has given these rights, not given by the king. It's not given by the government. What you have, your right to exist and live, that's not a government prerogative. And that had to be very clear, and if the church doesn't understand that and preach it, then you're going to have a government that will take advantage of that ignorance. And so it was the Black Robed Brigade that was a foreshadowing of the American Constitution. And Christians woke up, and as you said, even 70 years later, when de Tocqueville was touring the nation in awe of America, he understood that it was because Christians understood that Christianity is real and applies to real life and government and everything in life right now. So, yeah, it's very important, and if the church doesn't do that, then we're all going to suffer for that. So I want to encourage that, and I know that you do that, Marty, and a lot of the folks that do listen to your program really encourage Christians to get involved, and that's why I'm honored to work with you.
Thank you, Brian. You know, you reminded me of a great book I haven't thought about in a long time. It was written, I'm pretty sure, in the early part of the 17th century. It's called Lex Rex, which is the right to question kings, because the rights do come from God, not from the king. So
that is right.
But you and I could have a blast talking about this for about 2 hours, but unfortunately we don't have it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Oh yeah.
You had asked about the conference coming up.
Yes. Yes.
For those, particularly in California, listening, and in Southern California, but all Californians are welcome. We have a conference September the 13th in Orange, California, and we're going to be joined by a good churchman, Father Frank Pavone. And Catholics listening will recognize his name. Father Frank Pavone is just a great priest and a good priest to know. And he's a leader of Priests for Life. When he goes and he encourages his own fellow priests to make sure they are talking about life and what's at stake and what's legal right now and why the church should address that. So he's a great guy, but more specifically, it's not a religious convocation, because we have the president of the National Right to Life Committee, Carol Tobias, will also be there. Carol will be talking about the victories that we have won and our being one, state by state. And again, without getting into history and the civics of this, the fact is that the laws of the states are what protected babies before 73.
Right.
All of the states. And they had slight permutations and differences. And if you look at how laws are done, that's true on a lot of levels. All homicide laws are actually state laws. Mm-hmm. And the definition of premeditated vehicular homicide is a little bit different in California than, let's say, Louisiana. And the penalties are different because states have authority that the federal government doesn't have. And the authority of the state is to protect life of all states, of all just states. The purpose and authority of the state is to protect life.
10th Amendment.
So there's different laws. And so now on the right to life cause, there's different abortion laws. Texas last year was the 10th state to sign a law. Governor Perry signed a law that said after a child can definitively feel measured pain, and right now technology is marking it at 20 weeks, but technology is changing. But if it can be established that child can recoil and feels pain, then there will not be an abortion done. Wow. That's hugely significant.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, NARAL, Planned Parenthood, they don't want to appeal that to the U.S. Supreme Court because Roe is going to go down. Mm-hmm. See, people think, we talked earlier, I'm not sure if we're on the air or not, but we talked about the Dred Scott decision.
Yes.
And how the pro-slavery people said, well, that settles it. We settled it. The Supreme Court settled it. And they're saying that about Roe v. Wade, but you need to know that even the most outrageous advocates of abortion know that Roe is flawed and would like to see a different type of Supreme Court case because Roe is built on the wrong premise. And so there's various other laws. Last year, you and I were on the phone, and Shannon Grove, just a great American and a great California legislator, she sponsored a bill regarding sex-selective abortion. We know that certain cultures and even Americans actually can go out and find out what the gender of the baby is and kill the baby just because of its gender, and usually it's a girl. There are 8 states that have prohibited that. There are 25 nations that have prohibited that. California, when our legislature voted on it, they didn't prohibit that. But that's the kind of issue that when people see what's going on, that abortion is used just to kill a human being you don't want. And in that case, because it's a girl, and you know who the only people in California who defended that were feminists, radical feminists. So you know that there's some bad thinking. And we know that Roe versus Wade is going to go down. So Carol Tobias, president of National Right to Life, will talk about the victories in the other states. Everyone knows, and we've bemoaned it here on our show, and your show, Marty, that California is the hardest state culturally in many ways, but Roe is still going to go down.
Oh, yeah.
The question is what happens next.
Yeah.
And if we prepare in California, we can roll back you might say the tide. It's a red tide. And those are folks that have been to the California coast and seen a red tide. It's a viral poison, if you will. It kills a lot of fishes, too. But we're going to see this tide change if we are involved in civics. If the people with the right idea understand that the civic arena is where the right ideas go to be enacted and enforced. Because our opponents are doing that. So this conference is about that. There's a lot of other speakers, state legislators. Joel Anderson, a wonderful state senator, one of the best we have in the building in Sacramento. He'll be there, and various other folks that you just don't want to miss.
Yeah.
PJI, Pacific Justice, and Brad Bacus.
Oh, yeah. Great people.
Wonderful people. We're talking about you can be involved in civics. You can make a difference. And to be perfectly honest, if you don't blame anybody.
That's right. That's right.
These are our laws. We're Americans.
You know, there's an event coming up here. In fact, Mary Lee Schroeder wanted me to say hello to you.
Mary Lee's awesome.
Yeah, she is. November 8th, and I guess Clay and I are going to MC it. So we'll be MCing the Right to Life event here in Bakersfield in November.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we've got about 45 seconds left. And you know what we're going to do, Brian? We're going to have you back before the election to talk about the election. Okay?
Oh, we've got to.
Yeah,
this is our one chance to make history. Don't let it slip by, folks.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the election. So in the 30 seconds we have left, basically, again, people need to get involved. There's 52 days left before the primary, 52 give it.
Well, the
give
general.
Or take. The general, yeah. And a lot of primaries, like I know in Senator Smith's case, his primary's next week, next Tuesday.
Yeah, it's New Hampshire. Yeah, we've had ours in California, and I think New Mexico may have. Oh, one thing real quickly, right now the U.S. Senate, wherever your senator is, Senate Resolution 19, Harry Reid has brought that. Call your U.S. senator. It actually would stop citizens from having free speech.
Yeah, and Brian,
Harry Reid has sponsored that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to end it at that. We'll see you in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio News Talk 1180.